When it comes to the animal kingdom, cats are known to be amazing parents. So when a cat ended up adopting a tiger cub, it wasn't a huge surprise how well it cared for it. But a few years down the line, something happened that nobody could have ever seen coming. Arthur was a man who absolutely loved camping. He often left his home in a Russian city and headed up into the nearby mountains, where he'd set up his tent and spend a few days surrounded by nothing but nature. For him, camping wasn't just a hobby. It was a chance to really get away from everything and recharge from his busy life in the city. Sitting alone by his tent, with nobody else around for miles, felt like pure heaven to him. You see, Arthur worked in finance, and his days were packed from start to finish. He spent hours on the phone, chasing payments, managing investments, depositing money, checking stocks. It never seemed to stop. It was a fast, high-stress job, and even though he enjoyed the hustle, sometimes he just needed a break. Being able to step away from all of that noise and tension and sit in total silence was exactly what he needed every now and then. But during one of these peaceful camping trips, something happened that Arthur never could have predicted, something that would change his life in a way he never imagined. So what was it? Stay tuned to hear the incredible story. One evening, while sitting outside his tent, feeding the small fire he had made, Arthur was sipping from his coffee flask and reading a book when he heard a strange noise. It was a high-pitched whining, almost like a moan. Arthur had spent a lot of time in these mountains, and he had never heard anything like that before. His curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to find out where it was coming from. Setting down his coffee and book, he got up and carefully headed toward the sound. It wasn't easy to figure out exactly where the noise was coming from. The thick trees around him seemed to muffle and bounce the sound, making it echo strangely. But after some careful listening and a bit of guessing, Arthur finally rounded a bend, and what he saw made him freeze in shock. Lying there on the ground were two tiny tiger cubs. They looked just a few weeks old, completely helpless and so fragile. Arthur, being a big cat lover, immediately wanted to scoop them up and help them. But he also knew there had to be a mother somewhere nearby. Maybe she had gone off to hunt, or maybe she was hidden, watching him closely. Whatever the reason, Arthur decided to leave the cubs where they were, even though he couldn't help but keep going back to check on them throughout his camping trip. But after a while, it became clear no one was coming. There was no sign of a mother, and the cubs were truly all alone. When Arthur noticed how heartbreakingly thin they were, he knew he couldn't just walk away. He packed up his camp, gently scooped up the two tiny cubs, and decided he would try to take care of them himself. When Arthur arrived home, he was greeted at the door by his cat, Princess. She was a beautiful little thing and had already raised several litters of kittens before. Arthur loved Princess more than he could say, and sitting with her at the end of a long, stressful day was one of the few things that truly helped him relax. But today, Princess's usual calm welcome turned into wide-eyed curiosity. She looked back and forth between Arthur and the two tiger cubs as if she was trying to ask him what on earth he had brought home. Arthur didn't have time for a slow introduction, though. He knew he had to get some food into the cubs immediately if they were going to survive. As he quickly fed them slices of meat and poured them a bowl of milk, Princess stayed close, watching everything. And then, just when Arthur thought he'd seen it all, Princess walked right over to the cubs and started licking them, grooming them with gentle strokes of her tongue. Even though the tiger cubs were almost the same size as her, Princess clearly saw them for what they were, little ones who needed care. It was like a switch had flipped inside her, and she instantly stepped into the role of mother, like she had been waiting for it all along. Over the next few weeks, the tiger cubs got stronger. Their skinny bodies filled out, and they started moving around with more energy. Princess never left their side. The cubs followed her everywhere, treating her just like their real mother. She groomed them, taught them when to eat and drink, and even played little games with them before they all curled up in a pile and slept together. As the weeks rolled by, the cubs kept growing, getting longer, taller, and heavier until they were much bigger than Princess. But she still treated them like they were tiny kittens, and when their play fighting got a little too wild, Princess didn't hesitate to charge in, putting them right back in their place. Watching his tiny cat boss around two huge tiger cubs never failed to make Arthur burst out laughing. Sadly, though, the time finally came when the tigers grew too big to stay living with Arthur. The tigers were becoming a massive handful. They didn't mean to, but they were so big and clumsy that things around the house were getting broken all the time, and feeding them was starting to cost Arthur a small fortune. After a lot of thought, Arthur made the tough decision to take them to the local zoo and ask if they could take over their care. As he loaded the young tigers into the back of his car, Arthur felt a heavy sadness settle over him. It only got worse when he caught a glimpse of Princess sitting by the window, her face full of confusion and sadness as they drove away. Thankfully, the zoo was more than happy to welcome the tigers. They had just finished building a huge new enclosure, giving the tigers plenty of space to run and play, just like they would in the wild. There was even a large perspex viewing window, so visitors could watch them without disturbing them. After saying a heartfelt goodbye, Arthur left the cubs in the care of the zoo staff, knowing he had done everything he could. Still, he made a quiet promise to himself that he wouldn't come back to visit. He worried that seeing them again might bring on too much guilt for leaving them behind, and for several years he kept that promise. But time moved on, and Princess grew older. Her little body started to slow down, and one day she got sick. Too sick for her to fight it off like she used to. Arthur rushed her to the vet, and after some tests, the vet gently told him the kindest thing would be to let her go peacefully. Arthur agreed with a heavy heart, but he had one final thing he wanted to do for her. One last little adventure. So he carefully placed Princess in her carry cage and drove to the zoo, not really knowing what to expect. Walking through the gates with Princess in his arms, Arthur made his way to the tiger enclosure. The moment he got there, he recognized them instantly, the two tigers he had once rescued and raised. Through the thick perspex, the tigers spotted him too. They locked eyes with Arthur, studying him, remembering something from a long time ago. Arthur wasn't sure if the tigers would remember him after all those years. He lifted his hand and placed it gently against the window, almost like he was reaching out to pet them. The tigers glanced at his hand for a moment, then slowly turned away, showing no real sign that they knew who he was. It hurt a little more than Arthur expected. He lowered his hand, feeling sure that to them he was just another face in the crowd now. But just as he was about to leave, something unbelievable happened. Something that would stick in his heart forever. Arthur picked up Princess and held her up so the tigers could see her. The change was instant. Both tigers immediately lit up with excitement, racing over to the glass, pawing at it playfully and rolling on the ground. They remembered her, the little cat who had raised them, cleaned them, and loved them when they were tiny and helpless. And Princess remembered too. Even though the tigers were now giants compared to her, she clearly knew they were her babies. Maybe it was their scent or something deeper that only animals can sense, but there was no mistaking it. Princess rubbed her small body against the glass, meowing sweetly, while the two huge tigers tried to rub back through the window. It was an emotional, beautiful moment that touched everyone who saw it. Arthur had wondered if the tigers would remember anything about their early days, but now he could see the answer right in front of him. They hadn't forgotten at all. They still carried a deep love for the little cat who had once been their world. It just goes to show that even though Princess and the tigers weren't even the same species, real love knows no limits, and a good heart never gets forgotten. For just a little while, everything in the world felt perfect again. If this heartwarming story touched you too, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more incredible animal tales, and share this with someone who could use a smile today. We'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments.